Hello everyone, welcome back. Today is March 6th and we're doing business and social stories for your hump day.
And it's the return of the collapse section this week.
Yay!
More layoffs.
PlayStation is cutting 900 jobs and canceling games, affecting Spider-Man, Last of Us, and Horizon developers. Now, this is not the same job cut that we reported, what was that, in like September, October, November? This is another new one.
A fresh job cut.
Oh, these are all fresh. We would never serve you stale job cuts. And this one is interesting because they are literally bragging. It's like the UK government.
Yeah.
We went from UK will never take your jobs to, oh my God, can you believe how good AI is at getting rid of jobs?
Klarna says its AI assistant does the work of 700 people after it laid off 700 people. This is a Swedish fintech company, and they said that the AI can help people with questions like, how do I do this on my account, or how do I pay my bill, or how do I do this, or how do I do that? The AI assistant is good enough where it's just like, here you go, this is how you deal with this.
And it doesn't stop there. It just continues to roll.
Bumble, the dating app on CNBC, is going to lay off 350 people as the tech industry job cuts mount. How does a dating app have over 1,000 people as employees?
I am confused about some of these.
I don't know. That is wild. 10 people to build the app and then the other 900 to sell the data, right?
Yeah, probably the data stuff.
My goodness.
But Sony is not alone. It seems that the gaming industry is really going to take a hit this year.
EA to lay off around 670 workers, sunsetting games, and moving away from future licensed IP. I might be reading too much into this, but EA is basically saying that we're just not going to sell you games anymore. We're going to rent an experience, and it's going to cost a lot per hour of entertainment.
But Star Wars, Marvel, Jedi, Black Panther, Iron Man, all things that Disney has ruined. So why would anybody be excited about them?
Didn't they just release, was it EA that did the pirate game and they called it a quadruple A game?
Oh, I saw that headline.
Yeah, and it was like very basic mechanics. I
didn't. I saw that I think you could try it for free, right? But I'm not interested in that.
No, it's not.
We seem to be moving toward a game ecosystem where the little indie gems come up with the new game mechanics, and then the EAs and Disneys descend like locusts and just, it's like, oh, yes.
Pilfer through their pockets for new mechanics, yeah.
I can't wait to see what how the AAA ruins the PAL World experience. Because they're going to copy it. Yeah. Well, AT&T had an embarrassment last week, and it was just their fault. They screwed up. There was no outside blame that they could base. So what are they going to do? Well, they're going to give you some pittance in return for your inconvenience. You know how you couldn't call 911? Well, guess how much that's worth?
AT&T is going to give you about $5 after their massive network outage. And we reported on this last week. A lot of the comments really liked my comment where it's like, this is basically just the NSA installing their new TAP, because in what world does it make sense that our critical infrastructure has a single point of failure for millions of people?
I just liked him. Didn't we confirm it was just one guy making a mistake or something?
Well, that's what they sold us.
Yeah.
So we don't know. The conspiracy theory was the
nation state
solar radiation.
Oh, I like that too. I like both of those conspiracies.
Apparently, a lot of people reported that the other companies also had outages, but I wasn't able to confirm that.
I think it was more like if you were on Verizon, it still worked if you called a Verizon customer, but if you tried to call someone from AT&T, it wouldn't work.
But they also have network sharing, so it might have been.
It's like if the fiber backbone from Chicago to Atlanta is down, chances are there's not more than one fiber run between Chicago and Atlanta, because we are very poor planners as a species.
Now, this one's tangentially related to the tech world, but a lot of tech workers would be in these places under normal circumstances. And this begs the question, how bad is the commercial real estate market in the United States?
The office market is so bleak that Canada's largest pension fund sold its stake in a New York City building for $1. I don't know if it was this building in New York City, but I did actually read a report. Somebody had earnestly put together a plan for turning a commercial high-rise into residential, and it was bleak. It was so bleak because the building had used all this advanced engineering and like tensegrity principles to have like a central core of steel and glass curtains on the outside, and then the engineering firm ran the numbers on doing like the internal firewalls and the plumbing and the electrical to turn it into nice apartments, and the building literally would have to have a carrying capacity like 312% more than it was designed for, because it was designed for like big open like cube farms and not actual apartments. And so it was, at the end of the very long report, it was basically like, we should just tear this building down and start over, because it would literally cost more to fire rate this building and turn it into apartments and put in the plumbing and electrical sufficient for apartments as it would to just tear it down.
That's how China kept juicing their real estate. They build it and it'll be incomplete, and they'll be like, tear it down, we'll do it again.
Yeah. There was like 12 pages dedicated to like, here's the strategy that we're going to use to try to make the carrying capacity work for this floor. And it was like, oh, that won't work because that'll overload this. And then it was like, we could do this, but then that. And it was like, we could take the glass cladding off of the building to claw back X number of weight for the building. But then it created some other structural problem. And it was just like, this is impossible.
Now, it's important to note that headline says $1. It's actually $1 and a boatload of debt. You have to take on what they hadn't paid for the building. So
They didn't get their equity
not quite at all.
at all.
But still a disaster for that pension fund.
Yeah.
Those poor pension people in Canada.
But also, I had no idea it was that hard to convert. Because, like, it was actually easier, and this was mentioned in the report, converting an old warehouse or something like that, because it was all fire rated. Like, oh, there's going to be a warehouse fire. Like, they did all kinds of amazing stuff for, like, those old industrial buildings. It's easier to turn that into residential stuff than a modern...
It's also usually like one floor, which also, that's a lot easier, too, if you're not worried about weight as much.
No, some of the ones in Cincinnati, those are like 7 or 8 stories. They were able to turn those into a...
Well, that's a lot different than
Yeah.
skyscraper that's dealing with wind shear.
It's like, oh, look, it's all glass and steel. It's like we can't pack enough stuff in there.
Well, we're packing students into buildings on university campuses and running through their pockets. But what are they actually getting in return these days?
More than half of college graduates are working in jobs that don't require degrees. And that number is probably going to go up with AI helping shore up stuff you don't understand what you're doing.
You mean jobs that robots can do?
One might argue that you should go to college because you're interested in learning, not necessarily just for job training.
I don't think colleges operate as
that way. No, they
institutions
don't,
of
and that's
learning anymore.
stupid that they don't. But
I really like the idea of colleges turning into a thing where it's like, we're going to make you productive. It's like, what are you? Can you be productive intellectually? No. Well, good news. You can still be productive to society in these other ways.
that should be a trade school, though.
Yeah,
like, if you want to go to college, like, you should be looking to expand your mind.
That's literally the opposite of what Chris is talking
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's a bad thing, but, like, it's not what college should be.
That's what high school should be.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's identify what your use is.
Ah, yes. Now you can go to college. Ah, yes. Now you can go to trade school. I'd be okay with that.
Well, I mean, we don't restrict you from not going to college if you can afford it, but maybe just be like, listen, going $100,000 into debt when you're 24 could be an issue.
Not even 24, probably more like 18.
And then they'll be like, $100,000, that's my rent. This also tangentially related, not really. I mean, power is at the heart of all of our technology, right?
Well, this is something we always talk about. And so here it is. Like, make a note, because when we say this backs up what we say.
But also keep in mind, when we get all of these scare tactics where they're like, oh, Russia and China is spying on our infrastructure and they're going to try to shut us down and blah, blah, blah. Well, we're not actually working to improve that. But why?
Profiteering hampers U.S. grid expansion. Private utility companies are blocking new inter-regional transmission lines, which would even out the load on the grid. 1, 2, introduce points of redundancy. So what happened with AT&T and the internet connections doesn't continue to happen with our power grid.
Yeah, but then I can't have a monopoly over an area, and then I can't charge whatever I want for electricity.
Exactly.
Texas is the big one. And, of course, they operate their own little fiefdom down there for power. And apparently they don't want anybody running these big lines in, because then that energy, even moving it long distances, would still be cheaper than local.
This ceases to be capitalism when you have gone so far out of your way to prevent the competition. Like, this is the thing that is anti-capitalistic. This right here. And it's also bad for society. It's bad for us as a country. It's bad for us as individuals.
But it's great for line go up.
It is great for line go up, but we should not do it.
And it's great when those lobbyists go and visit our lawmakers, they get to bring nicer and nicer gift baskets.
What do we need to do to revoke their access cards to Capitol Hill?
But they brought me such a beautiful fruit basket.
Do you have any idea what the quality of those muffins is?
If we need a little bit of crony capitalism to have delicious muffins in the White House, then so be it.
Now here's a case of who done it, and according to our leaders, Houthis done it, but they might have a bit of a bias.
Underwater cables in the Red Sea damaged months after Houthis, is that how you say that? Threatened to do just that.
Houthi did it would be a really good news title, but I think that would get us demonetized.
Yeah, probably too spicy.
Yeah.
It's crazy how we have to try to think around that.
It's literally every week we're trying to think of stupid pun titles. It's like, I don't know, that one might get us delisted.
Now, they claim that, or some of the people who are arguing against this say that the Houthis don't have a submarine fleet that could get down there. But one of those little, like, private drone submarines?
Or just a boat anchor.
Yeah, that's literally something that happened this year.
I don't know how deep this one is. Probably.
What we're going to do is use a mile-long chain and some barrels filled with concrete.
You can just part the Red Sea. That's simple.
Those people are on the other side of the Houthis, though. They did that. They're not friends. And this man doesn't have any friends because he is a monster who blatantly robbed millions and millions of people, but he says that he has the spectrum disorder, so we should just look over it.
The Ars Technica headline is that SBF has asked for a 5-year prison sentence and calls the 100-year recommendation for his sentence grotesque. So he's behind FTX and Sam Bankman-Fried. Although, interestingly, all of the stuff that they've invested in, and they invested in enough different stuff that if they sold everything at fair market value now, the investors would recoup what they lost.
They did sell it. Remember a couple of weeks ago we had that big crypto crash?
Yeah.
And nobody was like, wow, the economy seems like this should be moving the opposite direction. It was because they were selling all those, trying to liquidate.
Well, they should have waited a few weeks because it's even
poor timing.
My goodness.
And moving on to the hardware section, we have, of course, the never-ending shrinking of the transistors, and Intel is telling us what's coming down the pipeline.
Tom's hardware headline is Intel puts 1 nanometer process on the roadmap for 2027 and also plans for fully automated factories with Cobots. So the 1 nanometer thing got a lot of play in the press, but really it was just like clickbait nonsense. There's a shift happening with these kinds of tech headlines because it's like, oh, it's the end of Moore's Law and we're making the transistors smaller and smaller. The original headline was like 1 nanometer is going to be in mass production by 2027, and that's probably not the case. We don't even have, like, this is just a thing that showed up in a slide, and because all these organizations were trying to be like the first to write up an article about it, you actually didn't get anything reasonable or useful in terms of technical information out of it, which is sad.
But the Cobots. Cobots are going to be co-worker bots who are working. They are still talking about they want a human-free foundry. Everybody wants a human-free foundry.
And TSMC is a lot closer to a human-free foundry than Intel is at this point.
And it's getting around that time of year where we need to define what new tech product needs to be the headline for everybody here on out that no one actually wants. So we're done with VR goggles. Now we're on to this.
Lenovo's laptop concept is fully transparent, but the point isn't entirely clear.
I want everybody on the plane to be able to see what the heck I'm looking at, even if they're ahead of me.
But it turns out that on this kind of a screen, low contrast stuff you can't see if you've got a busy background. And you will almost certainly have a busy background whenever you're using this laptop anywhere.
That's going to be so funny. They're going to sell this, and then they're going to sell it with something you put on the back.
Yeah.
So you can actually see it.
Would you use this, Wendell?
No. This is so gimmicky. And that keyboard is from...
That keyboard does look awful.
Lenovo had like an Android tablet that was like a foldable and it was super thin. And I used that tablet forever as like my exercise tablet. And the keyboard on it was awful.
I don't think this is on a hinge, is it?
I thought it was, but maybe not.
Is it?
I mean, like, it looks cool, but like the point. Is there a point? I don't know that there is.
I know somebody that got one of those Asus laptops that's the dual screen with the keyboard on top of the other screen, and it is, in practice, it is surprisingly less gimmicky than I expected. To just have all of that screen real estate.
Well, if you're going to buy all of these laptops, one thing you got to watch out for is your house burning down.
15 million Toshiba laptop adapters recalled over burn and fire risks.
These are 15-year-old laptops. A lot of people out there rocking 15-year-old Toshibas. Respect, but be careful.
I still have my old, I don't think mine was a Toshiba. I have my old college laptop buried somewhere.
Have you seen, it's like they made it 8 years before the pandemic, and then it was like, well, I'm not getting a new laptop now.
Smart. It's smart to buy tried and true technology and take care of it and keep it running, and not go out and buy the newest thing. Because when you do that, you can get burned.
Vision Pro owners are reporting a mysterious crack in the front glass. Apple will, of course, charge you $800 to fix that.
Whew.
Several different people. Several is not like 100.
It's like the butt crack of the Vision Pro.
I don't know if it was true or not, but I saw a message on the Discord that somebody had 3D printed and like their glass had broken like this, and Apple wanted $800 to fix it. So they just took the glass off entirely and 3D printed something to make the headset happy. And they actually were like, oh, it weighs a lot less now. I really like it without the glass. I'm just going to rock this way.
Yeah, but like dust and debris, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and the camera's getting dirty. And
yeah, your eyelashes and your skin cells getting in there, sweat. Here's an interesting headline, and this sounds like a fun thing, but it's a very small transition to go from this to we're monitoring everything. And we're doing it in a part of the CPU that you don't get to have access to anymore.
IBM's new AI-enabled SSDs identify and eradicate ransomware in under a minute. This is the part, okay, this is cool, but also disturbing if you think about what's happening here. The SSD looks at the pattern of writes that are happening on it because there's a there's a computer in your SSD. There's a computer connected to a computer. And that computer is looking at how you're writing stuff, and it says, the host computer has been infected with ransomware. I'm going to just preserve this information and not overwrite it and not erase it because I don't trust that what's happening isn't bad.
Those are enterprise level drives, so not in the consumer grade stuff yet, but give it time. And how long before that starts to detect copyright violations?
It's very easy to do that. It's like, oh, this is on the forbidden MD5 sum list. And it's like, 45 drives also, they have a software that does this. They beat IBM to the punch. They have a thing for ransomware called SnapShield that works surprisingly well. Similar principles, but for network connected storage, it's a pretty cool product.
Now, let me give you a consumer tip, a pro consumer tip. If you're buying a car, almost every car dealership will ask you to sign an arbitration agreement. So if that car is garbage, you can't sue them. You should tell them that you're not willing to do that. And sometimes you just can't buy a car from them. But try, at least, to not have that happen. But in that case, you have to actually sign a piece of paper. Like you're supposed to read it. Nobody does, but you're supposed to read it. LG has taken that whole thing way further.
Fridge failures. LG says that angry owners can't sue. Company points to a cardboard box. So if you've got an LG device with a linear compressor, I'm so sorry. Turns out those are garbage. Terrible. Fail a lot.
They last about 2 years.
And so LG says, oh, you agreed to arbitration because of the box. And a lot of appliance owners say, we didn't see a box. We literally ordered it from Best Buy or Lowe's, and it showed up on a truck with some guys. And
they took the box back with them because that's part of the white glove service.
Yeah, we did not do any kind of box anything. So it's interesting that LG is not like, oh, I'm sorry you've experienced horrible product failure and people have replaced your linear compressor multiple times.
It's almost like they designed it that way.
Yeah, their response is literally, haha, you can't sue us.
Please buy another one.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks, LG. Literally everything is that way. I had a Train. My Train air conditioner died, and it's supposed to be a 10-year warranty, but a paperwork mix-up meant that the warranty was only 5 years. And the FTC, like, you're supposed to register for a warranty, and I thought I did, but the FTC says that you're not supposed to, like, have a registration warranty like that if you can prove, like, that you bought it, and I can. And Train's like, no, F you, get lost.
Now, I don't know if I believe that because I've heard that you can't stop a train.
Yeah, well, it turns out tiny pinhole
True.
leaks in the evaporator coils will absolutely stop a train dead in its tracks and cost way too much money to fix after soldering has failed.
Are you? Because we've had a couple of days last week where it got up there in the high 70s.
Yep.
Are you feeling it?
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, I think that's what murdered it, is going from hot to cold to hot to cold, and it was just like, I'm done with this. Because the compressor had failed under warranty. That was at year 4. And the reversing valve, which is at year 4 and 11 months, those were replaced under warranty. So it's like, how do you not have the registration? Because you literally already replaced things under the warranty. But it was like, oh, we made it to 5 years in 11 months. And it's just like, well, you're on your own.
Well,
It's just...
We all hate them. We all hate so much about this world. And here's another thing to hate, because our technology and the things that we take for granted, a lot of it is licensed, and you might not realize that. But some of the reason that we can't have nice things, some of the reasons that this is not the year of the Linux desktop is
And
not,
it never will be.
It's not because of the developers, it's because of the licensing.
The HDMI forum has rejected open source HDMI 2.1 driver support sought by AMD. This should make the HDMI, my opinion on HDMI.
This is going to be too spicy for YouTube.
As an individual, is that HDMI is one of the most anti-consumer organizations there is. The HDMI Standards Committee does not exist to make lives better as consumers. They want to erect as many licensing moats as possible. They will sue over ridiculous things like their logo is slightly smaller than other people's logo on a box, and you have a responsibility to make sure their logo is front and center. They are disinterested in things running better. They are more interested in extracting money from your wallet without you knowing it. It is an inferior standard compared to DisplayPort or something like that, and this kind of nonsense should not go unpunished. It is deeply troubling.
Are you arguing that all these stories that we just talked about in terms of like AI and 6G consortiums might lead to the same behavior?
They are the exemplar of what was once a standards committee that has become the grotesque and perverted. It is far worse than how Cthulhu was described for computing standards.
Kind of like AI being an open source company.
Yeah.
It started out as open source, and now it's very not.
Well,
Pay to play.
Apple tried to make a transition into a new kind of business that they weren't used to, but it did not go as well.
Apple cancels plans to build an electric car. They laid everybody off, and some people shuffled to other groups. No one was surprised by this. I think the last time we reported there was a shakeup in their electric car group, we said this would probably happen, and we were right.
I think I forgot to add the other story, but the other story had they went back and figured out the dollar amount. It's like, what, $14 billion
Yeah.
they've spent? So they've been working on this since 2014, and they got nothing to show for it. They're just scrapping the whole thing.
Well, I mean, Apple's looking at the experience of owning a car and using the control systems in a car and seeing that is just an incredible raging trash fire of suffering, and thinking we could fix the suffering and people would really love to be brainwashed by the Apple Kool-Aid.
I think they're looking at current EV sales.
Yeah.
No.
It's probably cheaper for them to just wait until that market comes back. And this might shake up the market for storage, but not really because it's slow.
China Breakthrough promises optical discs that store hundreds of terabytes. A CD-sized disc could store 200 terabytes, and it's not terribly slow. It's not dramatically slower than a mechanical hard drive.
But it is slower than the tape drive that was just announced that has more storage.
Yeah, the tape drive is absurdly fast. But it's still, like, an optical disc as fast as a mechanical hard drive would be incredible. But a 200, like if you had a 200 terabyte, 3.5-inch hard drive, it would take 7 or 8 days to fill that thing up.
I don't need it to be as fast as a mechanical hard drive. That's too high a bar.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like if it was as fast as a mechanical hard drive, it still takes 7 days to read the whole disk.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But if you needed just super long-term storage, imagine if you put in your Bitcoin wallets on that.
Actually, you could probably store the blockchain on that. That would be a convenient way to.
Not have to download it every time. And we have the usual arguments between Google and Microsoft, which is the Spider-Man meme, of course. One pointing at the other one saying monopoly when they know that they are both monopolists.
The Reuters headline is exclusive. Google steps up Microsoft criticism and warns of rivals monopoly in cloud. Okay, I mean, this is a fun article. There's a lot of stuff we can talk about here. But I'd rather sum it up a different way. And that is, okay, imagine you're Google. You've beat Amazon to the punch. You beat Microsoft to the punch. Think about Google's storied history. Google literally invented search. If you're looking at where Google is now and you look back on their history, how did Google not become AWS, Amazon Web Services? They wanted to offer cloud services. How did Google, they were miles ahead in terms of API-based infrastructure, and yet Amazon.
How did they not get GPT first?
TensorFlow, they were so far ahead of everybody else with all of their AI. They were doing their own hardware when GPUs were too slow. Tensor cores,
I take a look at the Google graveyard every now and then, and it is astounding how many things they did try and then just shelved after like a year or two.
Yeah.
Which I think that probably in the beginning that was really good for them.
Yeah.
Because the ones that worked really hit the mark in. And we say the Spider-Man meme because literally Google points at Microsoft and says cloud monopoly, and then they turn around and they exhibit how they are a search monopoly.
Google says Microsoft offered to sell Bing to Apple in 2018, but search quality issues got in the way. Not even Apple wanted Bing because Bing...
Bing is Bing.
Bing wasn't good.
It's never going to be.
Bing still isn't great. It's better than it was, but it's so hard to get good, trustworthy analytics from anything Microsoft because everything is hardwired to be misleading for the analytics. See also the start menu. The reason the start menu and parts of Windows are absolutely worthless and useless is because that makes a line go up on somebody's spreadsheet somewhere.
I think what's going to happen is the search industry is just going to burn to the ground, and AI is going to be the new search.
I really have been having a blast running at some of the bleeding edge local AI models for stuff like that. Like being able to ask it programming questions and things that I would normally use a Google search for is faster than the Google search and has a better answer most of the time. If we could combine the large language model with what Google used to do in terms of content indexing, and it's like, oh yeah, I saw that here, and it would just take me straight there, that's the breakthrough product.
You don't need a source. Just trust the AI.
Well, it does hallucinate a bit.
Well, Google, their search is still the default, and they are sort of gatekeepers in a lot of different businesses because of that. But one of them, it seems, maybe they're not as excited about because it's such a minefield. And they know, probably internally, how garbage all the results that you get in this space are.
Google tests removing the news tab from search results. Well, that's one fix for it, I suppose.
Hey, I've figured out the best way to consume news media, at least in the United States, is not.
Just be at peace.
Or look at it with the most critical eye that you can, which hopefully is what we're doing here. And here's a question. How can we cram a little bit more ads into your life? Team Green, fresh off the highest valuation ever, has a new plan.
Nvidia's free tier GeForce Now will soon show ads while you're waiting to play.
That makes me want to puke all over your head, sir.
Now, this is not during load time necessarily, but on the free tier of GeForce Now, you actually have to wait for a machine to free up. While you're waiting, you'll be enjoying ads. I bet if you stop watching the ads and you don't click to engage with them in some way, it'll pause your queue. Give somebody else the computer.
Does a engagement challenge, do you still have to jump through hoops if you use the GeForce Now type technology with your own computer? Because I don't use GeForce's thing for that. I use a different thing for that. I use Steam streaming, but I also have another thing on my Steam Deck that does the Steam streaming thing a little better than Steam streaming for apps. And so why wouldn't GeForce just let you stream back to your own computer?
No, this is when you're using their hardware.
The cloud, yeah. And so you wouldn't get the ad when you're just streaming to your own computer. But at one point they made it like unnecessarily obtuse, and that's when I went to the third party application, and I haven't gone back since.
Well, when it comes to inserting ads, one problem that you're going to have is that people will do anything to escape them, including running alternate software to not have your horrible home screen with ads. So what do you do in that case?
Ars Technica has the headline, Amazon bricks long-standing Fire TV apps with the latest update. Those apps basically bypass the worthless, useless, ad-ridden, awful screen, like startup screen, on the Fire TV and just let you get straight to what you wanted to do.
That's what they used to do. Now they don't do anything. They've been banned.
This soup is amazing. You know what would make this soup even more amazing? Poop.
Some poops. Just a couple.
Just put a little poop in the soup.
Well, Apple...
Line's got to go up.
Apple put a lot of poop in a lot of soup. And because some people really like that flavor of soup, it was tolerated. But now Netflix is saying no more.
Netflix members with older subscriptions might get cut off if they don't update. Well, this is a no-brainer. If you're Netflix, you can get a free 30, like the end user pays the same money. You get 30% more. You just have to get people to switch their payment processor. That's it.
You might lose some of them, but if you lose less than 30% of them,
Yeah.
you're probably going to do okay.
That's a pretty significant chunk. Yeah, that's a fun way to think about it too. It's like if 70% or more of the people come over to our payment platform, we will be as well off as we were or better.
And people will pay it.
That is amazing how crappy the situation is with Apple, because it doesn't cost them 30% for their infrastructure. See also their $1 trillion bottom line.
And the shocking thing to me about this headline is that it took this long and that we're still this close.
Streaming to overtake pay TV subscription revenue in the U.S. this year. Yeah, cable TV is done.
I assume it's just like lack of good internet access that's kept it
It's
for a
old
while.
people.
Yeah.
My parents were just forced to switch from coax to everything over streaming. But they're happy with it.
The local coax, since we
is
have
it?
2 fiber providers now, the local coax company has gotten very desperate. Because even like the fiber people have made enough money on their infrastructure now, you can get like $20 a month, 100 megabit fiber, and so everybody's switching to that.
I saw they offered. Are you at the top, the highest tier now?
Yeah.
They offered a new one.
Yeah.
I don't think it's worth it because I can't even get the speed I'm getting now.
I was able to download Baldur's Gate at 5 gigabit, like for real, and it was just like
Time to get back into the addiction.
yeah, and it was
Steam
just like
never gives me the full.
you might need to change your DNS servers because that's the only difference. That's the only non-default I'm running.
I've tried it with VPN and it was the same. Well, once again, it's the copyright police are given total control over everything on the internet. No one ever questions it.
MovieWeb domain shut down by Hollywood complaint. MovieWeb was an open source application that would scour the internet for sources of media. Now, this included your local public library and free TV websites and stuff that YouTube had that was watched with ads, but also the guy down the street named Carl who would maybe have a whole bunch of movies on his computer. Which maybe was piracy, probably, or maybe just Carl being a nice guy sharing his stuff with you. You don't.
No, there was for sure piracy.
Just a little.
Let's not try to pretend that there wasn't. But the thing about it is, they weren't hosting anything. It's the whole like, hey, we'll show you where this stuff is, but we're not going to host it. And you can still get this software, but not at that website. And they were like, you know what? We're never putting the website back because we don't want to play these games.
Yeah, GitHub has apparently resisted requests to take it down because it's just a search engine. But it's a search engine. It's software that's capable of crawling the internet and looking in places on the internet, which then also have references to things.
Now we talk about this company. Is it Funimation?
Funimation.
They offered anime content, but there was a twist in that they sold DVDs, but inside the DVD there was a code. It was like, hey, if you want to just like store this DVD and go to Funimation.com, we'll let you stream it for the rest of your life because you bought the DVD. Well, they're gone now. Sony has consumed them. So what happens to all those codes?
Sony claims to offer subs, quote-unquote, appropriate value for deleting their digital libraries.
That turned out to be a lie.
That is a lie.
Turns out some people have reached out and said, hey, I've got a couple of these DVDs. What are you going to give me? And they just got boilerplate email after email.
Nothing.
Basically, they're not.
The AI is running that now.
Yeah, for sure.
You know the Willy Wonka debacle? You get nothing.
Oh.
That's what some. But we got that in the nonsense section
The
too.
Willy Wonka, that has been my favorite thing to watch this week. What a delight.
Yeah, it's really terrible. There's nothing better than I really hope the Sony thing becomes some sort of digital first. We need a digital version of the first sale doctrine, so that when I buy a game on Steam, even though like Gabe's been benevolent here, when I buy a game on Steam, I own it. I can do whatever I want with it. I can format shift it. I want format shifting codified in law. I want format shifting for DVDs codified in law, even if you have to bypass some kind of protection mechanism. That's what we need. We need a laser focus on that. No distractions.
My prediction is when Gabe dies, we're all gonna.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
are so screwed.
Maybe
And-
we'll all be dead by then.
At that point, I expect the entire Valve Corporation to start doing crap like this.
Yeah, Nintendo is suing the makers of open source Switch emulator Yuzu, which is amazing. That's what I use on my Steam Deck to enjoy things. And Nintendo
Not for long.
Yeah.
Nintendo is out of control. Like this is if you watch the channel for a long time.
Now, if you've ever used one of these emulators, it's not just download it and run it. You have to have a file that comes from a valid switch that's used for the decryption. And Nintendo is using that thing as the crowbar to be like, no. This doesn't have any valid use because you're not using it for homebrew. You're using it to steal our games, and this is the proof.
The reverse Bleem argument, if you will. But I really, really hope that Nintendo does not prevail on that. And again, this is something I would love to see codified in law. Like, are there enough of us that we could push this kind of thing through at this point? Like, what do we need? Who do we need to get elected? How many of? Come on, people.
See, here's the problem, though. It's not how many of us there are. It's how many dollars we have.
Yeah.
And Nintendo
And
has
how many are
so
you willing
many.
to put toward?
Yeah.
Nintendo, this is just a level of antisocial behavior that is intolerable.
Well, you know what else is intolerable? When all of your open Visual Studio Code windows are closed unexpectedly on Wednesday every month.
Windows security updates could come with fewer reboots beginning later this year. Windows is going to enable hot patching so that they can just patch the code while it's running. And Microsoft can remotely shut down your machines anytime they want.
You need the, what's the name of the coprocessor? Virtual something? You need a CPU that has that so that the operating system is basically walled off. But most modern new systems will have that. And Google, amazingly, this is so much like what was the name of the company that Apple went after for running the Macs for text messaging?
Oh, if you hadn't have asked me, I could have told you.
Was it a bird?
Starts with a B. I was thinking B.
Beeper.
Beeper.
This is so much like Beeper. How could the Google PR team be like, guys, come on, we cannot.
Pull back.
We don't want to
Pull
get
back.
it. This is not for us.
Google is blocking RCS on rooted Android devices. Beeper Mini, no.
Now they claim, and there's probably some truth to this, they want to protect from people who are rooting Androids and using them for automated spamming and stuff like that.
Okay, but can you protect us from Pegasus and all those other companies that
Oh,
were listed
God.
in that article?
Absolutely
Not even
not.
close. No.
No, never.
What about just advertisers that are, collecting?
But Google's an advertiser. They work with advertisers.
They're using the advertising data to, blackmail me because I used a dating app or something. It's just like, why?
Well, if you're a Kiwi, then one of the days this week might have been tough on you because fuel could not be obtained. And why? Because the rapid onset of software means that there were probably some graduates who this got developed in the last 4 years. We know that, right?
The Ars Technica headline is self-pay gas station pumps break across New Zealand as software can't handle leap day.
Real life is for March.
One of my favorite things to do ever is to show new computer scientists, like, hey, do you think you can do date calculations? Can you tell me how many hours there are between now and next Tuesday? And then it's like, all right, let's break that down. And then it's like, did you consider leap day? And it's like, no, you didn't. And then, all this other stuff. And time zone changes and that kind of stuff. And then it's like, all right, let's talk about September 1752. And then they just lose their mind.
And the leap second. It is a nightmare. And when you read this headline, there's no way that I can imagine this is not true. I think they got a slam dunk here.
Meta accused of massive and illegal data processing by European consumer groups. You dig into this, and it's like, oh, is this something new? Not only is this nothing new, this is literally just the data processing thing. They're just looking to get some fines and some money here.
Shout out to the editor on this article who picked like the most paranoid picture I've ever seen of Zuckerberg. And that's like there's a lot of competition in that category.
The caption for this picture is, "The humans are becoming suspicious."
I must grow out my hair to appear more like them.
But yeah, this has to do with the whole consent or pay. And basically, they've been telling you, hey, you've got to fix all these things, and they haven't, or have done the bare minimum, or less than the bare minimum. I've lost my cursor. There it is.
There it is. One more.
And finally, we have Mr. Musk, who is fighting back for the fact checkers.
X goes to court in Elon Musk's war against the anti-hate research organization. Basically, this is the organization that said that all sorts of terrible cesspool things were happening on X, and Musk says, okay, let's back that up. And I gotta say, he might have a point on some of this, because a lot of these same kind of things are happening on Meta, and like Google certainly accepts some disturbing ads.
But they also take down everything these people tell them to take down. That's the difference. Now, this is the Center for Countering Digital Hate. I'm not aware of them, but they also in this article mentioned Media Matters. I'm very aware of Media Matters. And as much as we all know that Elon Musk cannot be trusted and is probably insane on some level, I would trust him more than I trust Media Matters.
The thing that's amazing about Elon Musk is that, like, as a single individual, he's been able to bring forward, a whole bunch of things, or his
money has been able to bring forth a lot of things.
Yeah, because it's like he's not single-handedly doing stuff for SpaceX, but at the same time, he's sort of cleared the logjam of dysfunction that prevented anybody else from doing SpaceX. So that's pretty cool. Good job, Elon Musk. But at the same time, like, some of the stuff that he posts is just something ain't right.
I think he's having a ball. I think he loves the controversy. He loves the attention. He's living his best life. He's doing whatever he wants. He's just getting all these girls pregnant. And there's no consequences in his world.
I think they were saying the one who was, I can't remember what her position was on the board. The one that one that he got pregnant.
The Neuralink one?
Yeah, they think she might be pregnant again.
Wow.
I don't know that that's true. That is on the rumor mill.
Weren't a couple of those in vitro?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not even we're having happy accidents.
No,
We're scheduling
it's
these babies.
bizarre, yeah.
That's madness.
I don't know that that's true. If it is, we'll do a story about it, but I have seen that on the rumor mill.
Is this some kind of like dominance thing?
I don't know. I don't get it.
Maybe if he gets enough of his family in key positions in governments around the world, it's going to make things a little easier.
He's trying to have 13 children so he can sacrifice them in some sort of occult ritual.
Bizarre ritual.
Extend his life.
Wasn't that one of the jokes in the Mike Myers movies? It's like the Rothschilds were doing something like that. I don't know.
If he does that, we will tell you about it. And on Friday, we will tell you some more things.